You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Danielle Park, editor of the popular blog Juggling Dynamite and president of Venable Park Investment Counsel Incorporated. Welcome back.
Hey, hi, Jim.
The Fed admits the world is still in a state of economic emergency. You mean they haven't solved all the world's problems yet?
Or any of them, or they've made them a lot worse, in my estimation. The farce that we've lived through in the last couple of weeks leading up to this dubbed as all-important Fed meeting, for 2 years now, the Central Bank of the United States has been promising they would be raising rates any moment now because the U.S. economy was doing well in their estimation, and they kept promising and kicking that ball forward, and then finally, after all that preparation yesterday, they said, oh, we're not quite ready to do it. We think that a quarter-point hike might be devastating to the global economy at this point. And so I think it was a very interesting moment because for those of us who have understood all along that this was a confidence game and a facade of power that was actually not there, that they weren't actually orchestrating anything significant, they've, as I said, they've manipulated and massaged and pretended and extended for so long now, for 9 years since the last interest rate hike. And, all that time, there's been some people that believed that central bankers were all powerful. Many of us knew they weren't. And I think the revelation finally hit the participants that were left in the market yesterday because I guess they thought that the Fed was going to issue some wisdom from the oracle, that they would say, we're going to raise rates a quarter point because everything's good now. And in fact, they chickened out at the last moment. So you saw this huge initial surge in asset prices. I mean, all asset prices, because everything has become almost perfectly correlated in the last couple of years on this whole, misallocation whim. And then everything spiked, and then during the press conference began to sell off. And after the close, futures went steeply negative. Commodity prices collapsed again. Europe followed up with a collapse into its trading day, and the DAX in Germany is now almost down 20%. That technical bear market reading, and this from the strongest economy in Europe, Jim. Their stock market is evidently predicting, not a rosy forecast from here. So anyway, it's just kind of reaffirming for those of us who like to do math and actually keep our head on straight when it comes to assessing the prospects for global growth and what that means for asset values, and hopefully the start of more revelation along this way, because, again, it's been this very frustrating period where pixie dust has been sprinkled and hopes have been held and unwarranted. And so now you've got more people saying that they believe the Fed is now part of this massive problem in the world, this misallocation of resources, the fact that savers and pension funds are cash strapped and can't get any decent returns. And even for their, big banks, this flat yield curve, this zero rate, zero bound policy is starting to become a big problem. So I hope that we get more of the recognition of this as we go along here.
The chief economist at the Bank of England wants to ban cash and bring in negative interest rates because he believes people are hoarding cash and must get rid of it.
And this is interesting, right, because a couple of years ago he was one of the critics of the easy money policy, saying that we should not have such an interventionist monetary policy in the world markets. And he seems to have capitulated and gone, fully into this thesis that, manipulation is the only way to go here. So it's another one of those moments where you think, oh my goodness, they're becoming increasingly crazy and desperate, the monetary theorists, as they have been revealed to be, part of this massive problem. As I was writing, they have, for 15 years, they've lowered rates to create asset bubbles, one after another, to try and bail out certain corporations and reckless risk takers, and certainly to bail out the big banks, who have become these massive, conglomerates. They gobbled up everybody in the early 90s and into the early 2000s and made themselves into these monsters that were, inadvertently almost in terms of policy, but in the end backstopped by taxpayers because banks originally were backstopped, and now you've got taxpayers on the hook for this incredible amount of capital market risk and speculative risk and leverage in the world. So all this whole period, the last 15 years, has been really an exercise in insanity, and it is, I think, run its course. And I believe that now we're going to have repricing back to reality, and that, the two lines that crossed in the last 15 years were corporate profits went unusually high, and the wage growth and participation rate for labor went extremely low. And we know that throughout history those two lines mean revert, and they go in secular swings. So I think corporate profits are now on the decline, as we've seen in the last year, and I think that the wage parity must start to rise back up again, and that, you're going to get a much less profitable time for the corporations, and hopefully a more genuine economic recovery for real households and real workers. But that will involve paying down their debt, saving up their money, the good old-fashioned way, instead of belief in monetary magicians.
Well, with negative interest rates, what reason would you have to leave your money in a bank?
Well, this is the thesis, but you see, the fact is that people need cash to live. So even though, they can try and make cash abhorrent and have no return, which is essentially what they've done for the last 15 years. They kept lowering rates, so that it became very easy for people to justify spending and borrowing to spend, and made it less attractive for them to save because the returns on savings kept going down and down and down. But you see, in fact, people do need cash to exist in the world. They do have bills that have to be paid. They do need to consume things, and they can't barter for these items with, hard assets or paper assets other than currency at this point. So it is a monetary fabrication that people don't need money, and it is the reality of the person on the street that they do. And I think that the person on the street is getting that message now, and no matter what they try and do to make cash unattractive, the reality is that people still want it. And that, it's interesting because a lot of talk, I put on a clip today of Charlie Rose's discussion last night on Fannie and Freddie Mac, and I think this is quite instructive for Canadians as well. They're talking about the American mortgage giants that have been used and abused by politicians over the last 15 years, particularly to try and drive this, quote, homeowners for everyone, to get the housing rate in America into this realm of the highest ever in history. And of course, what happens is the same thing as what's happened in Canada in the past few years, where they kept driving rates lower and lower and lower, lowering lending standards so much that even the people who should never have bought a house, who could never afford a house, were induced to take out loans and get themselves into homes. And those were, in fact, short-lived tenures because, as I said, they didn't really have the wherewithal to maintain the property and pay the taxes and the principal on the loan and all that. So the Fannie and Freddie discussion last night is very interesting for people that want to learn more about that issue in America and to figure out, that is the largest financial institution in the world. There's some $5 trillion of liabilities there, and the government has been taking the cash flow out of that company since 2012. So there is no capital there in that huge financial institution in reality. And you see the same thing, the promises that have been underwritten by the Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation in Canada in the past few years, much of those promises are not actually backed by assets that are actually there. So it's all this kind of Ponzi-like promises that everyone will be made whole, when in fact there just is not the money in the system to back up those promises. And if you see the federal politicians, they were in debate last night, Jim, I don't know if you caught that in Canada, but there's a lot of talk in that campaign about incenting Canadians to borrow and buy more housing. And it's just ludicrous that they haven't figured out from the American experience that is a path to a nightmare. You know, the Americans got their household ownership rate up to 69, and then that 5% that should never have bought homes that was way above the historic averages lost them all again in the collapse from 2005 to 8-9. And that same thing threatens the Canadian housing market today. And yet the big plan, how are we going to get Canada out of recession? Instead of pay down debt, save, invest in intelligent infrastructure projects, the thesis tends to be let's figure out more ways to get more housing loans taken out and keep rates low and get Canada Mortgage and Housing to back even weaker borrowers. And this is just this, as I say, a chapter of insanity that has to come to an end.
We'll have more with Danielle Park right after the break.
Unbelievable harmonies, spectacular performance, Bird Dog and the Vintage Electric Band, the ultimate tribute to the Everly Brothers and Simon and Garfunkel in Oliver, October 2nd, in Kelowna, October 3rd. Buy online and save at ontourtickets.com. More and more people are looking to the internet for intelligent, riveting, and thought-provoking interviews. To advertise on the Goddard Report and TalkDigitalNetwork.com, call 604-699-8600, 604-699-8600.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Danielle Park. Danielle, the Chinese government hasn't banned short selling on their stock exchange. However, they say instead of pumping billions of dollars into the stock market to prop it up, they're now going to hunt down the culprits who are responsible for their market going down, and apparently 200 people have been arrested, including a journalist who warned several months ago this thing cannot be sustained.
Well, you see, now this is the extreme, like Monty Python almost version of what the other central banks in the world have done. This is an example of when it's gone, far past any realm of reasonable kind of, even, motions. Like I think it's quite ironic that people are talking about the Chinese government and their predicament and ridiculous behavior and how insane this is, but not seeing that the other central banks in the world have been just doing sort of lesser, versions of the same behavior, because everybody's been price fixing and manipulating to try and make people believe that the politicians have not messed up as bad as they have, that the central banks didn't actually bankrupt the world with their insanely loose monetary policy over the past 15 years. But all that is in fact what happened, you see. And it's like exactly the same thing in China, where they pumped up the economy on all this incredible amounts of leverage and debt, all through trying to get the housing bubble, which they manufactured and achieved, and then it burst. And then exactly like almost in the inverse steps of the central bank in the United States, where they first of all engineered a tech bubble in the early 2000s, then they followed that up with a housing bubble to try and bail out the financial system and paper over the first bubble that they built. They did it with the housing bubble and the commodity bubble, and then they've done it with a QE bubble this third time. Well, the Chinese government has been following that playbook. They seriously have. They've been watching exactly what's gone on in the West. The U.S. in particular has been the, capital ideas, the center of these policy initiatives. They came out of all those famous business schools. They all went to school together, and then they all worked at places like Goldman Sachs. They went out into the world like an army of mindless creatures, and indoctrinated all these institutions around the world with similar strategies and thinking. And it's had a similar result everywhere all at once. And China is just that wild example of, now because they are, not even embarrassed to say they're a centrally planned economy, everywhere else is as well, but they don't like to admit it. And China's been, obviously admitting all that and saying this is our model, but now they're trying to stamp out any free market force from actually happening by this intense iron hand from the government. So I just think it's like a morality play almost for the rest of us to see what happens when these policies go to these far extremes. And they aren't stopping the bubble from bursting. Let's not kid ourselves here. Even with them dominating and arresting and, banning and, not allowing people to sell shares and all these insane things that have totally destroyed any semblance of free market enterprise over there. Even with that, the stock market has continued to implode, and fell off 50% there before rallying a little bit in the last couple of weeks. And so I guess my point is the same thing is likely to happen in the rest of the world. The emerging markets are all in bear markets now. The North American markets have sold off about 11% from their peak, but I think there's a lot more to go there. And to think that central banks, by enforcing or keeping rates as if that's doing something now, right? We've already been at zero forever, for years, and they extend that a bit more, and that's supposed to do something. The global economy is slowing down. China's leading the parade. Everyone was overly optimistic about what growth there would look like using these ridiculous econometric models that were all based on how to sell people the idea of never-ending expansion and sell people on the idea of international investment products. That was the whole point of the models that were produced in that era. And now they're all being shown to have been, the Chinese are decimated. The people there are generally much less wealthy. The masses are much less wealthy than we are in North America, but whatever savings they did amass, and they were good savers, they were seduced to put it into things like housing that they couldn't even actually live in, but, own it and hope that it would go up in value, like a speculative or a gambling kind of enterprise. And then they were, attracted back to the stock market there for the same kind of mentality because the housing bubble was bursting. Well, now the Chinese people are saving more and spending less and more decimated and disturbed about their future because these bubbles have burst and left them with less than they started with. So I think the same experiences are happening in the rest of the world and is going to continue to happen because they built this fabrication, this belief that asset bubbles made wealth, when in fact saving and paying off debt are the only things that actually make wealth.
Well, China has built these cities the size of Winnipeg with nobody in them.
Exactly, and many people were, pointing that out over the past couple of years, our firm included, and, the sales side of the finance business would take issue with that every time and say, oh, that's nonsense, China's got 1.3 billion people. Well, yes, but 1 billion of those people had hardly any money at all and can't consume even a fraction, like a tenth of what an average North American can consume. So, if we're expecting them to carry the ball here, the trends are all going in the wrong way. The domestic consumption is falling there. These asset bubbles have had a devastating impact on whatever wealth the individuals had. And they are in North America too. The disparity between the, quote, wealthy and those who aren't wealthy has, as we know, become massive. And guess what? The ones who think they are wealthy are the ones who have ridden this QE bubble up the most the past couple of years. And they are now the ones who will lose the most in this mean reversion process. So pretty much everyone's going to figure out that, hey, we thought we were getting away with something, but in fact we're now, back in the hole and have lost money now over the past 15 years as opposed to actually made meaningful progress. And I think that will be a very positive revelation because we need to get to that, to get off this insane policy, to stop letting central banks take over as if they are the political force on the planet. They are these appointed officials. They aren't actually truly government. They're this agency that has been manufactured essentially to serve the big banks and then sold to the public as this custodian of all things, to do with our economic health. And so I think, people are really starting to understand that that isn't the case and that they really are a destructive force in their current effect.
Danielle, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you, Jim. Have a good weekend.
You too. My guest has been Danielle Park, editor of the popular blog Juggling Dynamite and president of Venable Park Investment Counsel Incorporated. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at Talk Digital Net. Check out our popular YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. You can forward questions and comments about the show to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of HowStreet Media Incorporated.